The 1970s in England was a decade of flared trousers and disco beats. But my parents have very different memories of that time. They settled in Birmingham, the industrial hub of England, a vibrant city filled with factories, foundries and culture. The neighbourhoods were made up of immigrant families, many who had just arrived from the Caribbean, Africa and the Indian subcontinent. They arrived with dreams of opportunity, but were greeted with signs in public toilets reading, "No blacks, no Irish and no dogs." Housing was often substandard, and jobs were backbreaking, low-paying and sometimes outright dangerous, and racist slurs became part of everyday life. Influential politicians added fuel to the fire. One of the most well-known was Enoch Powell's infamous speech, "Rivers of Blood." Powell warned of Britain being swamped by immigration, stoking fear and giving rise to far-right groups like the National Front. The media played its part too, with emotive headlines like "Invasion" and "Job Stealers," perpetuating a narrative of division. But in such times, it takes a moment of kindness to create change. Two such souls were Roy and Maureen. Roy had served in the RAF, the Royal Air Force, and he had travelled the world embracing different cultures and diversity. But during those turbulent times, forming bonds with outsiders was frowned upon. It was at the risk of being ridiculed for not following the crowd. But Roy and Maureen were used to going against the grain and doing what felt right. One day, they befriended my parents. As far back as I can remember, we would visit them at Christmas and drop off presents and cards. It would become a friendship that would last over 50 years. Maureen even came to see me when I was just 3 weeks old and commented on the complexion of my skin, calling into question whether I was actually Indian. But that's just the way she was, always smiling, joking and positive. Unfortunately, Maureen passed away in December 2024. In some ways, I came to think of Maureen as a second mother. Above all else, her kindness is what I'll remember most. And that's the theme of today's episode. So whatever your goals may be for this coming year, try to be kind, not just to those familiar to you, but also to those that are less well known. Because you never know the impact you might have on someone's life.
From the city of Peaky Blinders, Birmingham, England, I would like to introduce you to Paddy Danda.
As the world becomes more automated and the robots take over, it's imperative that we build the right human skills for the future. So pull up a chair, grab a samosa or two, and make yourself very uncomfortable. So folks, I made a pledge to myself that I would try and bring a celebrity guest to the podcast. And so far I have failed. Well, of course, every guest is a celebrity in their own right, but I was thinking of somebody who actually works in the media and is well known and renowned for that particular talent. And so I finally managed it. So we're recording this episode just before we hit 2025. I feel like I've achieved that goal. So on today's episode, I have a bit of a superstar who works in TV, and I would love for her to tell us what superpower you're bringing to this particular episode, Andy.
Well, actually, I do believe my superpower is kindness. Maybe curiosity, but I'm going to stick with kindness.
Oh, what a superpower that is. I don't think I've ever had anyone come on to the show to talk about kindness. So this is going to be really interesting.
And I'm honored that I hate to disappoint your audience, but I'm honored that you think that I am your celebrity guest. Pardon me for laughing. I'm like, I'm trying to hold it in. But I am, yes, I am on TV. But if there were like, if there's a lot of people in media say that there's like an A list, a B list, a C list, and a D list, I'm on like the R or the S list when it comes to celebrities. But nonetheless, I'm very proud of you for working towards a goal, and you are achieving that. Golly gosh darn it. So good for you, Patty.
We don't care about lists. All we care about is the fact that you're in this space, and that's the
Thank
main
you.
thing. And you're definitely on my A list, so
How
that's what
lovely.
matters. We're going to talk about kindness, but before we do that, tell us about your journey. So, for folks that don't know who you are, who have been watching the wrong channels, let's just tell people a little bit about your
Sure.
background and how you got into what you do today.
Of course. I appreciate that. Yes. Well, probably most notably, I am the latest cast member on General Hospital, which is the longest running television show in television history. It is an ABC show in America. It's been on for 61 seasons, and I play a home shopping host, a home shopping channel host on General Hospital, which actually mimics my real life because I am a guest host on QVC, which is a shopping channel in America. But many of your listeners may know me from 20 years of television. I have done reality television, hundreds of episodes of reality television as a beauty and style expert. So I have done makeover television for years on shows like Starting Over, 10 Years Younger, How Do I Look, my own show, Sense of Style. I have a best-selling book in 14 countries called Style on a Shoestring. I am the founder and inventor of an internationally patented product called the Girly Go Garter, which is a hands-free purse that you wear on your leg. And I'm a stepmom of 3. I'm a carbon farmer in the US. And I have been doing lots of things that I follow my curiosities in life. But my latest curiosity is I could say General Hospital. It is my very first acting job at the age of 54.
Wow. Wow. And she says, I'm an R list. I mean, come on. QVC, everybody knows about. And look, I don't live in the US, so I haven't come across General Hospital, but I'm sure many of our listeners have, because the majority of my audience actually do come from the US. So I'm sure people have heard of it. Wow. The longest running TV series. That's amazing. So, how did you get into this field? Because I guess when you were young, you probably had lots of dreams, lots of things you wanted to do. Was presenting one of those, or was it something that you stumbled into?
In a way, I studied to be a sportscaster. So my dream was to, be on the sidelines and cover football and baseball and basketball. I grew very tall, very fast. So by the time I was 10 years old, I was 5'11". I was just a little under 6 feet tall at a very young age. So I was naturally pushed into sports. And sports was, something that created many relationships and wonderful memories and, a great foundation for me. So I thought that I would be a sportscaster. I actually dropped out of high school at the age of 17 and moved to New York from Alabama. I'm from a very small town in the southern United States in Alabama. And I moved to New York and I started a modeling career. I got what in the States is known as a GED, which is a graduate equivalency diploma, and got into college and started my career basically wanting to be a sportscaster. That was my goal. But when I graduated from college, and I have a double master's in media studies and broadcast journalism, there were not a lot of opportunities for women. Again, I mentioned I'm 54, so we're talking over 30 years ago. There were not really a lot. There were 2 big sportscasters that were women in the U.S. And so I did have an opportunity to start working on an up and coming show called Starting Over. And so Starting Over was a show where I built my career as a beauty and style expert. And that led to me doing years of television in that way. And in working in reality television, I was very fortunate that I worked with, dozens, if not hundreds of amazing producers who at the end of a show go on to do other shows. And so I have been someone who has always had the goal of doing my best, of course, showing up on time, putting my best foot forward, leaving every situation a little better than I found it is truly one of my daily goals. And so I'm fortunate that at this point in my life, I've planted enough seeds that when the role of Pearl became available on General Hospital, and it was, up to a couple of producers that I have worked with, over 20 years ago, they actually saw on LinkedIn that I was now currently a guest host on QVC. They reached out, and even though I hadn't talked to them for over 20 years, they were like, would you be interested in this role? And so literally in a matter of 3 days, because I had a good relationship with these producers and left a good impression, they were very kind to give me the role of Pearl on General Hospital.
Oh, amazing. And that, I guess, ties into this superpower of being kind.
I think so. Yeah, I do think so. What I'm experiencing on General Hospital, what I'm doing is really fascinating, and I'd love to talk to your audience a little bit about it, because I do think it's going to change the way that we watch television. So the way that it was pitched to me was, did you ever watch Happy Days and Fonzie? Is that like a part of your
that was a legendary show. Yeah, with the leather jacket and yeah.
You said it. So the way that this whole scenario was pitched to me is they literally said, what if you could have bought Fonzie's jacket? And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, so here's the deal. So people are watching television in a whole new way. They're, avoiding advertising, but it's called a soap opera, right? General Hospital is a soap opera because soap used to pay for it, Patty. I mean, that's, the truth of it. So
hang on, can you just explain that for us very quickly? How did soap pay for TV?
Well, a soap opera was sponsored by Procter and Gamble or by Colgate or by, Palmolive, or it was sponsored by soaps, if you will. So it was for daytime dramas for women who stayed at home, and it was sponsored by products that a homemaker would choose, could use. So that's how it got the term soap opera, because soaps sponsored the shows. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'd never thought about that, actually. Like, why are they called soap operas? So that absolutely makes sense. Thank you for that.
That's why. So then now, cut to 60 years later, because again, General Hospital has been on for 61 years, people are trying to avoid ads. And so, we have 3 million people a day who are streaming General Hospital and doing everything they can to kind of avoid the ads. So General Hospital is one of the first shows to think, well, how can we, sustain this show, but create alternative ad revenue within the show? And so there's been a storyline for the past 30 years of Deception Beauty. And Deception Beauty is this amazing, cosmetic brand that is run by these high-powered, gorgeous women. And the fans have watched them develop, products and lotions and potions and tools like red light therapy and all of that. So the fans have had the benefit of watching patenting processes and packaging, and just a very, very interesting storyline. But what they thought was, okay, what if we make Deception Beauty real? How could we make the audience aware of that? So they created the storyline of the home shopping network within General Hospital. And I, as well as Morgan Fairchild. Do you know who Morgan Fairchild is, Patty?
No, I'm going to Google Morgan now.
That's okay. You can Google her. She is an amazing beauty icon that was, a part of this amazing show in America called Falcon Crest. If you ever watched Friends, she was also Chandler's mother on Friends. She's been in the business forever. So the two of us are kind of the host of this fictional shopping network on General Hospital. And so when products have been licensed and they're ready, Deception Beauty brings the products to Home and Heart, which again is the fictional shopping network, and Morgan Fairchild and I pitch it, and then it becomes available for sale within a website called Shop Home and Heart, which is the General Hospital website. So this is all to say that Deception Beauty has become real, and now you can shop the show. So within every new show that's coming out in 2025, they are now creating tandem websites so that everything that you see within new shows in America, you can purchase. So if I'm in a scene, you can purchase this clock on the wall. You can purchase any of the makeup that I have on. You can purchase all my hair care products. And it's going to change the way that we watch television because everything within the show is now going to be consumable.
Wow, that's like a whole new level of innovation that you just wouldn't have expected, right? That's really blown my mind, actually, in terms of when we talk about being more innovative and actually moving with the times, coming up with new and creative ideas. That's a really, really cool idea. I love
Yeah.
that. And how does the viewer know about that? Like, do you point things out as you're doing the show, or how does it become obvious that, hey, like this is a really cool product?
Well, I mean, General Hospital created, again, this fictional shopping network. So we kind of pitch it within the show. But the new shows that are being developed now will have a small QR code in the corner of the show that will pop up at different times that will take you to the website. Or at the beginning or the end, they'll incorporate in some way within the storyline information that will guide people to the website so that they can purchase things. So again, the General Hospital experiment is just that. However, the experiment is working so well that new shows now are being developed with a fully, consumable arm to the television show. So they will continue to innovate how they let people, they make people, aware of it. But some of it is going to be QR codes. Some of it is going to be cable driven. Some of it will even be, we have to log in the US, like if we're using Roku or a lot of things with our phone. So we'll get cues if we're watching certain things on our phone. So the innovations are really pretty amazing. And it, like I said, the way we watch television is going to be completely new and different.
And is this the only show that's going down this route, or are there others that are also following?
No, that's what I'm saying. So General Hospital was the first one to actually attempt this. And so that's what I've been a part of. And now there are 2 new shows in 2025 that are from the ground up being built with the idea that everything's consumable. And I believe that this is going to be the case for every movie. I think this is going to be the case for everything that but especially television, because television primarily is paid for by advertising. And the fact that we want to avoid advertising means that they've had to become more creative. And I think that this is ultimately how things are going to get solved.
So a lot of the work that I do is around product management, and product managers generally have insights about potential demand, and we try and second guess what our customers, what our users want from whatever product or service we're building. So in this case, how have they measured that initial experiment? Because we often experiment as product managers. Rather than investing loads of money into an idea and then it flops, we try and do these small experiments. Are you aware of the early days of this particular initiative? How did the producers and the people behind it, I guess, measure its success?
Well, the storyline of Deception Beauty has been one that the fans have asked for, Deception Beauty to become a reality for years now. And because the fans have been so invested in the fictional development of all of these products, they were literally emotionally connected already to the product, to the results, because again, it's been a part of the storyline. So they hedged their bets that if they created Deception Beauty, that the fans would respond, which has absolutely been the case. And then the other thing that they did is, because there's awards and there are all kinds of ways to find your favorite character and fan response to specific characters. What they've done is they've taken like the 5, most beloved characters within the show, and they've built out storylines around products that they use, handbags that they carry, jewelry that they wear, all of that. So they've taken kind of the top 5 characters and then built things around what they believe that the fans would respond to. So all of this so far has been storyline and character driven, which, General Hospital has the benefit of having 61 years of kind of a test market in that way, whereas new shows won't have that. I'm not 100% sure how new shows will be able to make these predictions. But I can predict that. I think that you could predict that certain shows are looking to appeal to a certain audience. And there are some generalities around what certain audiences would respond to in terms of, decor or, products or all of that. So I think as you build a show, there is an expectation for who would be attracted to this. And then you basically use the market research on that consumer base.
I could talk to you about this all day, actually, Andy, but I know we've got a ton of things I've also wanted to ask you. So I'm going to focus a little bit on your superpower. Kindness isn't a very tangible thing. So tell me a bit more about that. Like, what does kindness mean for you? And what are some of the ways it's helped you, I guess, succeed in life?
Well, I actually do think, I kind of do think it's tangible, to be honest. I think that it's measurable, and I think that it's something that we all can practice. And I don't think that we give it enough credence. There are small things that we can do every single day that makes a really large impact. Even as small as, taking your shopping cart back to the cart place and opening doors for people and, paying for coffee for the woman next to you. Or it doesn't have to be a large thing, but kindness has a ripple effect. And I definitely believe that, when we do the small things to help others, it elevates and shifts their mood, which can then, change the way that they approach their day. So I think that it's contagious in a way. I think that there is a ripple effect to it. And I think that we as a society have kind of lost, common courtesies and kindnesses that don't take a lot of effort. It doesn't take a lot of energy to let someone in traffic. It doesn't take a lot of effort to like I say, hold the door or to be considerate or kind or courteous of the elderly. And I do think that in many ways we are so busy that we just think that those things don't matter. And that's not true. And I am a definite example of that. The kindness that I bring to my world, the people around me, I have not had an easy road of it. I know that, people might, think that as I spout off, all of these accolades and accomplishments and successes, that things came easy. But that's not, there have been lots of failures in my life. But with every failure, I approach it that, okay, what did I learn? Did I leave the situation better? And is everyone involved in that particular situation clear that I was kind, I was respectful, and I could be someone that could be considered for something in the future? So I definitely think that kindness leaves an indelible mark, and that it's an important thing. The other thing is people get very, very overwhelmed by the news and what's going on in the world. And, I stopped watching the news about 5 or 6 years ago. May will be 6 years for me, because it became very aware that I was overwhelmed with what was happening in the world and honestly, my inability to really make an impact. And so I started to think about, okay, what can I impact? How, if I turn off the news and just focus on what's around me, what can I impact? And I have elderly neighbors that need to be checked in on. I have, family that I can take care of. I have friends who are in great need, and I could create a GoFundMe page for them. So yes, I definitely believe that if you just focus on what's around you and what kindness you can spread and help you can offer to the people within your circle, because there's a lot more need in your circle than you're probably even realizing, then what happens is you feel the benefit of being able to help. It empowers you. It ultimately gives you more confidence, but it also pays back in spades. Your world just becomes bigger and more warm. You definitely feel more connected, and people remember you. And, when opportunities arise, you are usually, one of the top 5 on their list. I have made so many friends, not by trying to make friends, but by offering support, offering help. And then those like-minded people tend to come together, and then you build and form lasting relationships. And sometimes there's financial reward to it, but there's always, spiritual and emotional reward to it.
And is this a muscle that you've naturally built over the years? What triggered you to be this type of person? I know we will try and be good people, but it sounds like when you discover the superpower, you almost then become more intentional with it. So I'd love to know, like, was this something that you'd always done and then just thought, wow, this is giving me some great results? Or was it a moment in your life when you thought, this is something I definitely need to do more of?
Patty, I think it's a little bit of both, because I was raised by my grandparents who lived through the war. And the other thing that's, it seems like such a small thing, what I'm about to tell you, but it really is, it has had a huge impact on my life. So being raised on the Gulf Coast of Alabama, I'm sure you've probably seen, I was raised in what was kind of known as Hurricane Alley. Like hurricanes hit our area all the time. And I'm sure you've seen the photos of the devastation. So I was, raised in an area where a hurricane would come through every few years, and an area would be completely annihilated. And that's really where you have got to depend on the kindness of others. And you have to be that kind, extension for others. So sometimes you're the recipient, and sometimes you're someone who is actually reaching out and rewarding people, or helping people with kindness. So kindness it played a very big role in my upbringing because of hurricanes. I know that sounds crazy, but it is really true. I can remember going without electricity in 1977 for 2 months. For 2 months, my family did not have electricity. And, we lost all of the food in the freezer and, kind of all those things. So you just start to depend on your neighbors for a little bit of a generator time, right? To keep, to make a few phone calls, to do whatever's got to be done. So I was raised with the belief that kindness was important, that you needed to foster, good neighborly relationships, because you never know when they're going to need you or you're going to need them. And I was also raised, because I was raised by my grandparents, there was a lot of churching, there was a lot of belief, there was a lot of God in my life. And so that, if you just follow the 10 commandments, I mean, it's very clear we're supposed to love thy neighbor and be as kind as we can. So I think it's a combination of everything. And then moving to New York at a young age and realizing that it's a tough world out there, and we can all walk around being really bitter and angry and with our head down, but it's really a sour way to live. And if you hold your head up and you smile and you offer people, a hello and some kindness, it actually soothes the soul a little bit. So I found that it made me happier, and it ultimately, helped me build a bigger and more beautiful life.
Oh, amazing. And it kind of reminded me of when I was growing up as a young child. My parents would take me to India nearly every year. And I was then able to have that contrast of living a good life here in the UK, but then I see the other side of things. And I think when you have that comparison, it really does give you a bit of a wake-up call. And there's a great quote: comparison is the bandit of happiness. And in some ways, it is, but then in other ways, it's a blessing, because if you can't compare and contrast between two extremes, how are you ever going to appreciate your own situation? So I absolutely connect with what you've just said there. When you've faced adversity or you've seen adversity, then it gives you this other perspective, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely. And it's so interesting that you say that. I think that travel is the best education. It offers you such perspective on life and other people's existence, and, how other people are making it through. I think it's so important. And, sometimes we just get so involved in our lives that we think that, our world just becomes too small. And the minute that we stop look inside and look around us, then we absolutely have the perspective and recognize all of our blessings. So I love that your parents did that for you.
And we didn't have electricity for hours at a time as well. We lived in a very remote part of the area, and we're predominantly from a farming background. And yeah, electricity used to go, and you're faced with 40 to 50 degrees of heat in the summer. And yeah, it's terrible. You can't even have a fan on, and you're just baking hot. And that's when you really do realize that it's such a luxury having electricity.
So it's a big thing, believe it or not.
And you mentioned you've had failures. So can you maybe tell us about a couple of those and what you learned from those?
Yeah. So my biggest failure, I, it's hard to even call it a failure anymore, but 15 years ago, I was 5 days away from leaving to start the next season of a show that I was doing called 10 Years Younger. And I was out with my then boyfriend, and we were at this ocean club where everyone, swam out, and they climbed up on this big kind of cliff, and they jumped off this cliff, and everybody was doing it. And I decided that that's something I wanted to do because that's kind of the adventure girl I was. And I did it wrong, and I cut off my right foot. So in cutting off my right foot, I lost my television show. I spent 10 years trying to walk properly, get myself back together. I've had 7 major surgeries. Like everything ended, right? I had just come off my book tour. I lost my television show, and all because, I really wanted to go do this stupid thing. So it was a huge failure in my life. There were lots of projects that I had started. There were lots of contracts that I could not complete. It did lead me to create the Girly Go Garter because I thought, okay, if I'm not going to be able to walk again, if this is going to completely change, my existence and my career as I knew it, what can I do from a seated position? So I had the kernel of the Girly Go Garter. I had actually created one for myself on set as a mic pack holder because I was always getting water blisters from wearing a mic or a transmitter pack on my bra and on my back. So I created the Girly Go Garter as a mic pack holder. Literally, I started it from my hospital bed. So jumping off that rock was stupid, and it led to lots of failures and things that I wasn't able to finish and bring to a close. But I did create the Girly Go Garter, which is now the #1 insulin carriage device in the world. We hold, 19 patents, and we're sold in over 180 countries. So it's been a success. But the failure of me making that decision and, having everything that I was currently working on come to a complete stop and, an abrupt end and an unsuccessful end. And it forced me to look at life in a completely new direction and, start a new project and birth something that I had the idea of, and God had kind of planted the seed. And so I had to do things in a completely new direction. So it was a really big failure, but it led to new lessons, a new direction of discovery, and like a whole new product line and a new avenue of fun and adventure.
I'm absolutely blown away. I mean, the fact that you have something so tragic happen, and then you flip that on its head in a way is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, when we face difficulties in life, or there are sometimes these buses that hit us in the face and we never expected them. What did you find useful in terms of helping you then build the mindset to overcome those challenges? Because, it's all too easy for us to kind of sink with that challenge and feel that, well, my opportunities are limited now. What am I going to do? What were some of the things that helped you in that moment?
Faith. Without a doubt, it's faith, because I was so mad at the universe. I was so mad at God. I was so angry because I've always been like a very positive person. I've been a good girl. Like I never got involved in, drugs and alcohol. Like I was never that girl. Even though I'm a high school dropout from a dirt road in Alabama, I still was always very focused on, accomplishing and again, being kind and making a difference and making an impact. So I had led a pretty successful life and kept my kind of nose clean and, was a hard worker. And so to have everything come to an end, I was like, I was very angry at God, very. And we actually had this huge fight in my morphine haze in the hospital. And I was screaming at God, like, you have got to be effing kidding me. But what I realized is that, okay, so obviously I'm supposed to do something different because I did this to myself. There is no one to blame here. So something obviously needs to change. There's something I wasn't listening to. There's something that I was doing wrong. So whatever it is, everything came to a complete stop. And then I had to reevaluate. Now, did I, have some self-pity? Sure, for a little bit. But within 2 weeks, I was not taking any pain medicine in the hospital. And I wanted to focus on my new determination. And that was to birth the girl Eagle Garter. But it was a big faith. And it was also just an awareness of, okay, there's got to be a lesson here because this is too massive. This is too catastrophic for me to ignore. So what is it that I'm supposed to learn here? And so it was just a huge evaluation. And I feel like that's really what major, shifts in our life are all about. It's like, okay, something needs to change. I need to realize what that is, and I need to pick up and move on from here. And so for me, when bad things happen, the first thing I think about is, what am I supposed to learn? What am I supposed to see? And what am I supposed to glean from this? There's got to be something, or it wouldn't be this bad. I wasn't listening. So it's my faith and my belief that there has to be something I'm supposed to get out of this.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. And I'm guessing you had good people around you as well?
Sure. Oh, yeah. Well, that's what happens when you're kind. You naturally attract more kindness. And don't get me wrong, there are times where, people have taken advantage of me, but I'm not a pushover. And I know in the end that, my kindness absolutely pays off far more than anyone has ever taken advantage of me. So I don't want people to think that you want to be kind to the point that you're a doormat. That's not what I'm talking about. But yeah, no, I have actually cultivated amazing friends and beautiful relationships. And I think if kindness is the nucleus from which you work from, it's very easy to naturally magnetize similar-minded people.
And what if you do find someone that's taking advantage or doesn't quite get it? Like, what do you do then?
I just eliminate them. I mean, and that's probably seems a little harsh, but the truth is, if there's someone that is negative, if there's someone that is, bringing a toxic energy into your life, then you don't want to be rude, but at the same time, you just don't make them a priority. You just don't, give them your time, your attention, and then eventually they just kind of fade away.
I'm always fascinated by this concept of energy, positive energy, because I often say to people around me that I love surrounding myself with people that are super positive, they're upbeat. I know we can't be like that all the time, but if they're naturally upbeat, then obviously they're going to have their bad days, but I'd rather be surrounded by those people. But I can't explain that energy. How do you explain it? Because it's not a tangible thing. Again, it's just how people make you feel, or you get this vibe of people, don't you?
Yeah. So it's really the approach. It's as simple as the glass half empty or the glass half full. I mean, it really is. I mean, I have in my family, I have people who can look at the same exact scenario and figure out every bad thing that's wrong with that scenario or every positive thing that's wrong with that scenario. And so when I look at anything, like right now, I'm looking at my Christmas tree. There are some people that will come into my house and be like, "Oh, an artificial tree? Gosh, an artificial tree, that's, I don't know. I always really liked a real tree. I like the smell of it." And I'm like, sure, I agree with you. However, an artificial tree allows me to put on more ornaments. It allows me to have my tree up longer. It allows me to save a tree. So do you know what I'm saying? Even just the smallest little thing, people can look at it and figure out how it's all bad, or look at it and figure out how it's all, good. And I want to be surrounded by the people who naturally look at something and see all of the good in it before they start tearing it apart. And so that's how I judge someone, is if you're looking at a situation, give me the good stuff first, babe. Like, tell me all the great stuff about your day before you tell me how bad your day was. So, and I tried this with my kids too. I'm like, tell me the best parts of your day. So if you start to, train them to look at the good stuff first, to really seek out the positives in every situation first before you go down the rabbit hole with all the negative. That's what I'm looking for in my connections and the people, because the truth is our society has really cultivated this kind of culture of community around commiserating. And, sure, we want to find connection through some of our struggles, of course, but that's not the only connection we want. And I find this a lot with young people. Young people connect around, all of the poo-poo in their life. And it's very hard for them to see any of the positives. And so I'm constantly trying to pull my kids out of this. It's like, no, sweetheart, we have got so many blessings. We have so much to be happy and positive about. So when it comes to looking for people with positive energy, how do they approach every situation? Are they finding fault first, or are they finding the positive first?
I bet there's so much positivity in your household.
I try. It's not always that way, Patty, but I try.
I need you to come over and talk to my son, because he's always very pessimistic about everything.
I think it's an epidemic with a certain age, for sure.
Yeah, he's only 12, and he's just like,
Yeah.
always. You give him some advice, he's like, "No, Dad, that's never going to work." Or there's always that battle, and I'm like, is it just because I'm your dad? Like, if your uncle said that, would you be the same?
Yes, no,
I
it's
don't know.
because you're the dad. I get that too. Yeah, it's because you're the dad.
And as we wrap up, Andy, I'm going to ask you one of my favorite questions, which I didn't warn you about, but I like to finish off the show on this question. And it is, if I could give you any superpower to eliminate or abolish something in the world of work, what would that be? And we're only going to do it for 24 hours because we'll do an experiment and see how it goes. So what is the thing that really knocks you, that you think, you know what, I wish that didn't exist in the world of work?
In the world of work, if I had a superpower for 24 hours, I'd want to be able to see the future, because I want to live to be 100, because I'm so curious. And so I think my curiosity would be like, yeah, I want to see what's going to happen next. So that would probably be the superpower that I'd want. And if I'd want to eliminate anything in the work, it would probably be unfairness. I think that, I just think that there's a way to be fair. And notice I'm not saying, to me, fairness isn't always equal. But I do think that there are a lot of people who experience unfairness. So that does not mean equal, because I definitely think that, you should be compensated for your energy, your effort, and your work. So I would like there to be more fairness with energy, effort, and work output.
Well, hey, love that one. That's one that no one said before. And it's actually a really obvious one. You think, you know what? That is probably one of the most fundamental things in society, that if we resolve that, everything might be a little bit better. So thank you for that. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And Andy, if people want to get in touch with you, or they want to follow the great work you're doing, how can they do that? And if you could tell us about how they can get more information about some of the great projects you're working on.
Thank you for asking. So andypaige.com, ANDYPAIGE.com is where you can find kind of everything about me, my products, The Girl I Go Gardener, my book, Style on a Shoestring, a lot of my work, my services, kind of all that stuff. And then shophomeandheart.com is where you can find everything within the general hospital landscape that is consumable. So I encourage you to go to shophomeandheart.com for all of that.
Oh, brilliant. You've given me an idea. I think I should do that same concept with the podcast and go, everything's for sale. Whatever you
There
want,
you go.
you can have it.
Yes.
You can have this top. Nobody wants my top. I might strategically position some stuff behind me now. There we go.
Yeah, I love that. Great.
Oh, brilliant. Well, Andy, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. And I really do want to thank you, because it's such a fascinating topic, and really given me lots to mull over. And thank you for sharing all of your kind of personal stories and insights as well.
I'm so glad we had this time. And I am honored again that I am someone who helped you meet your goal for 2024.
Yay. Awesome. Done it, folks. Done it. Now we're going to set our goals for 2025. So whatever you want to do, it doesn't have to be a goal you've got to accomplish in the next few days or months. It could take a year, but look, have a goal, and it just helps drive you and focus you a little bit more. So there we go. I've probably emailed like 50% of the celebrities out there, Andy, and yeah, you were the one that came back and went, yeah. I'm only joking.
I'm happy to have been that person again. So I'm honored. I'm honored. I hope you have a beautiful holiday and a fantastic new year.
Thank you. You too. You too.
Thank you so much.
It's the end of another episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please do connect with me via LinkedIn and drop me a message and let me know your favorite takeaways from the episode. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Superpower School newsletter so that you can be notified of all future episodes. Simply visit the website www.superpowers.school. Thank you once again.